Hey everybody, this is Professor Diffley. This is History 103. This is Module 2, Chapter 1. This is Lecture Video 4. Moving on here, and I promise you the lecture videos, it won't always be this long. This one we start off in this early stuff. There's a lot more explanation that needs to go into it and background. And I'm purposely trying to move slower through these, but we'll move on quickly. Early humans on the move here. This is where we're picking up. Right, so these are other ones. Homo erectus, again, about 1.8 million years ago. Seems it died out around 200 years ago. How do we know that? You stopped seeing those fossils, those bones, those remains in the record. Again, erectus meaning standing man. Why were they seemingly around for so long? For over 1.6 million years, it seems. For 1.8 million years. Traits that contribute to survival, you'll see some of these are still there. Extended periods of caring for young, right? So this is something you have with humans, right? When a baby is born, it is helpless, right? Why? This is because it gives their time for the brain to grow, right? If a baby came out with a fully formed, a brain, it wouldn't be able to pass through the birth canal. So it gives it time, right? That's why a baby's skull is soft, right? So it gives it a time to grow. So this allows it to expand its brain. It doesn't have to be fully 100% developed when it is born. So it could also allow time for training by adults, right? Think about how you teach a kid. You move up from, very, very, very simplistic and move up. That's part of this too, as they get older. Another thing you have is something called allomothering. Allomothering. This is something we still have today. Allomothering, defined, is simply the raising or the care of children other than by its biological parents, right? Other than its two biological parents. Anybody else that helps, this is allomothering, right? And this is something we still do, right? Very few people care for their child 100% of their time when they're a baby only by themselves, right? Someone else helps other than the two parents. You can, right, this would be in monitoring, like a grandma, an aunt, a friend, somebody sitting for the kids, someone doing that. Allomothering. Also, think about children going to school, right? We don't teach our kids everything. We have others to do it. Why is this important? Well, it allows us to adapt. It allows us to use the strengths of others, the expertise of others, right? It also allows us to do more things by having others contribute, right? What's the old saying is it takes a village to raise a child, right? Well, cliches are cliches. They're around because they have a grain of truth in them, and they've been around for a long time for a reason. But that's allomothering. Again, so you can see, again, part of history is what we're looking at is trying to find to help us understand the way we are today. Really, that's what history helps us do. Understand the world around us, make sense of it. How did we get to where we are? What did people do? What choices? And you'll see we still do something like this, the way our young are born and the way we raise our children in terms of training them. And again, what helps them? The Homo erectus, bipedalism, dexterity, and eye-hand coordination. Is something we have the way our eyes are positioned compared to other animals, right? It gives us the ability to do these things. Why is dexterity and hand-eye coordination important? Tool making, fine motor skills, that sort of thing. And you begin to see attempt to control the environment, not only tools, but the use of fire, right? Clear burning, right? To burn out brushland, things like that, to use it for farming, right? Why burn it instead of dig everything up? It's a heck of a lot easier to burn it, right? And it also can put more nutrients into the ground. Other ways they've seen this in two examples here. They found these in North America where ancient Native Americans, how did they hunt mammoth? Well, they found a broken mammoth. We'll talk about later. What they would do is they would drive mammoths, either through fires and other things, drive them through the spears and fires, and corner them onto a ledge, onto a cliff, and drive the giant mammoth off the cliff, right? So all animals are scared of fire. If the animal falls to its death, that's a lot easier than having to kill it. In Australia and in Africa, they still do this. In Asia, they do this. There's evidence of it. So what they'll do is they'll light fires. They know there's a pack of animals that they're hunting in this brush. What they'll do is they'll light a fire almost in like a semicircle around the animals behind them. Why? Well, now everything's scared of fire. It's going to run away. And what's waiting on the other side are all the hunters with their spears. And now the animals are panicked and running and looking behind them, and they're easier to pick off. We know humans still do this. And so that's what we're talking about by their attempts to control their environment as well. Early migrations, again, you begin to see them leaving Africa around 1 to 2 million years ago. How do we know that? Again, this is where you start to see them, right? They start from going from Africa outwards. The age at where we find the remains changes, right? So closest to Africa, they're closer to the age, at least it had been, to when they developed in Africa and beyond. What's going to cause this? Environmental change. Again, the ice age is what we'll get into. You get land bridges, right? This is how what is believed now, the theory, Beringia, connected, across what is today the Bering Strait, that Asia and North America, from Siberia to what is today Alaska. When there was the last great ice age, there was less water, and so what you got, not really a bridge. They wouldn't have known they were going over it. It would have been a giant isthmus, and the isthmus is water surrounded on two sides, right? And so this is, they would have been connected, and they followed animal herds. We've seen other ones in the continent, Sunda and the Sahul, I'll show you, but parts of mainland Asia were connected to parts of the Philippines and other areas back then when they were lower. And then New Guinea and Australia and other parts were connected. So how did humans get there? The belief is they moved over there. And again, widespread migration, Java man, Peking man, they found these in the 19th and 20th centuries. And again, climate grain, human evolution, progression, and retrogression, right? Climate altered species, right? So where humans could live, what species die out, what move, that sort of thing. And again, it's not a direct ancestor, but again, they are more and more human-like, is the view. The Ice Age, when we know this important part here, the Pleistocene epoch or age, this is the last great ice age is what we're talking about. At least in the Northern Hemisphere, that's the last great ice age. You can see on the map there, it goes down in our area right here in the Northeast. It goes to about what is, if you look at map today, what is Long Island, New York, where I'm originally from, so I know the story, is you can tell where the last glaciers were. If you go to the beaches on the north side, the north shore of Long Island, they are all pretty big rocks. If you go to the south shore, it is all fine sand. And in the middle of Long Island are giant boulders that they can trace all the way back up to the Maine and things like that were dropped there. But again, sea levels drop 300 to 400 feet, exposing these land bridges again like Beringia. Here's an example of what it would look like. This is from the National Park Service. Here's another. This is human migration into the Americas. Again, this is one theory of it. Here's the Pleistocene continents again. This is Asia over here, connected to the islands there, and then you can see the islands are closer. So the idea is humans probably came through this way, down here, then island hop, because in a lot of these places you could see the islands with the naked eye, right? So it wasn't that hard to get to. And then Australia went all the way up into what is New Guinea today, and that's probably how people connected. Now they also think today it was connected out over here to New Zealand as well. Here's showing the early migrations out of Africa. This is the theory. This in your textbook, so you can see some of the the arrows, and that is where humans began to move to, and early hominins did. Again, and you can see on this map too. It also shows the connections there, as I had talked about. So again, more about this. The Homo sapiens, human species, first emerged in modern day Ethiopia around 150,000 years ago. Moved into Upper Africa and then out. Why? Again, climate change. And again, how do we know Mount Toba did this? How does your book know that a volcano caused some climate change? Well, the evidence is there. We find this there. When a volcano erupts, obviously it spews ash and all that into the sky, and then it deposits, right? And it leaves a layer. So when they dig down, all of a sudden there's a layer of ash, and that they know where that came from, a volcano. And it can travel all across the world. I remember in the 1980s, some of your parents are there, or grandparents or aunts and uncles might remember this, is when the, in Washington, state of Washington, volcano erupted, and it took a while. It took a few days, but I remember my parents telling me about this. They actually had a jar of the ash. They came out one morning, and their cars were covered in ash. Everything was. Well, it was snow from Mount St. Helena that had not snow, ash that had drifted across the U.S. And you can find these all around the world there. But again, Ice Age, this is precarious. Human sapiens survive because they are more adaptable. We can live in different climates. We may not like it, right? You can live in a hot climate, you can live in a cold climate. We have more bigger brains, greater dexterity, greater mobility, that sort of thing. More on the migration. Again, this is climate change led to smaller mammal survival. Why? Because they're small. They could adapt, agility, speed. They can move better. So this is where you see the mega fauna, right? The giant animals like the mammoths, the saber-toothed tiger. They don't. There's less and less of them. Why? It's harder for them to get enough nutrients. Harder for them to adapt. And so the smaller animals seem to have, and mammals seem to have a better life at this. Why? Well, cold-blooded animals, the warmer it is, the more they can move. Where mammals were warm-blooded, it doesn't impact us as much that way. Here's the China Shangdong man. From around, that's a typo. It should be a go, not a zero there. Sorry about that. Again, this is where you begin to see it's from 18,000 years ago, similar to modern humans in most things. They have tools, bone needles, right? So very fine-tuned. They took bones and made them into needles that they could sew with, that they bury their dead. And we find that. We'll talk about possible meanings in a little bit. More. So again, more about the migration hemispheric. We've talked about this. They begin to move as the warming cycles, as it freezes, but then warming cycles help too. As more and more plant life and animals emerged, humans began, like any animal, to where the food and water is, right? And we talked about Beringia. I talked about broken mammoth in Alaska. That's one of the earliest ones, and that is part of where it was Beringia connected to North America. But this is the thing too. Beringia is the theory today. However, they have found human settlements in further than the west coast of what is today the United States that seem to be around the same age. This is actually an evolving topic. Right now, they're starting to more and more question whether it was just Beringia that got humans over from Asia to the Americas. But right now, that is where most evidence points. But, could they have come in different ways with boats? Yeah, they could have. We've found settlements. The question is, were there enough of them to populate the continents? But it is something that is, as more and more archaeology is done, we'll find out more. What happened to the land bridge? It drowned, so to speak. The ice melted. It went, it got submerged. Long-term consequences, we'll talk about that. Cuts off the Americas from the rest of the world. To devastating effect later. They develop differently in terms of their cultures, technology, but most importantly, the Native Americans, because being cut off from the rest of the world, so to speak, aren't going to have immunity to the same deadly pandemic diseases that Europeans and others will bring over, in the 15th, 16th, and beyond, centuries beyond. Cro-Magnons replaced Neanderthals, right? So Neanderthals, what is this? Neanderthals were early wave of hominins settled in Afro-Eurasia. Afro-Eurasia is actually what sounds like Africa, Europe, and Asia, right? They're almost, Africa, Europe and Asia are connected. Some say Eurasia rather than Europe and Asia as different continents. But, that's for another day. But that's what we're talking about. Those areas there where you could easily move between those three continents. You had the Neanderthals, and we find them everywhere. They find them in Europe, all over. Not genetically related to modern human sapiens fully. That's not true. They're not fully related. Not everybody, but many humans do. Most humans do have some Neanderthal DNA in them. What does that mean? There's probably interbreeding way back when, because they look similar to humans, but not exactly the same. You can see the two skulls there. Brain larger than modern human brains, but not as complex, right? It's not, but even that's changing. They didn't think they were capable of art or, creating, monumental architecture or things like that. But more and more, they're finding more and more of it in the past year, at least. So again, things always change. You know, the Neanderthals eventually vanish. You know, they were either killed off, died off, or interbred. It's unclear what exactly happened to them, but we know that there is at least some interbreeding because, again, some humans have Neanderthal DNA in them. It's not significant where it impacts them, but, you know, when they do these genetic analyses, they can find some of this there. Here's other differences, again, between these two things. And why Cro-Magnon man, I should have went back to that. Cro-Magnon man is just where it was found, right? So in Neanderthal, because it was found in the Neander Valley, Cro-Magnon man, you know, it was found in Cro-Mag, a place in Europe there. So usually when things are found in the place, that's where they get named after. That's all that means there. We talked about the Stone Ages. Again, here's just to remind you of it. Because why? Because we're going into the Neolithic Revolution. So here is where we'll pick up in the next video.